Thank you. The next two questions are for Council Member Perkins first. The audience has submitted several questions that ask about some procedural issues with council meetings. Two in particular, whether speakers from the floor should be at the beginning or the end, and also whether you have any opinion about the moment of silence being replaced by prayer before council meetings, and what you would do, if anything, to change that if you're elected mayor. And that's to Mr. Perkins first.
Well, the speakers from the floor is a council decision. And of course the council is led by the mayor, but if the mayor can't assemble 5 votes for moving the speakers to the floor around on the agenda, then it goes where the majority of council decides it goes. But as mayor, I would try to get a majority of council to move it back to the beginning of the meeting and spend 1/2 hour at the beginning of the meeting. And then if we couldn't get through all the speakers, we would reserve a portion of the end of the meeting to get through the rest of the speakers. I think it's very important for us to hear from our citizens. Now, in terms of the moment of silence, I thought that that was a perfectly acceptable way to open our city council meetings. And it didn't offend any of our citizens. And yet it gave those that wanted to pray time to pray, and those that wanted to sit in silence that prerogative as well.
Yes. The speaker from the floor, first of all, to understand, North Carolina law requires a city council to grant a reasonable amount of time at least once a month, period. That's state law. We give 30 minutes twice a month. What we have right now is what the city council was doing up until 6 years ago when it changed. What we're doing right now is in the handbook I was given that comes from the Institute of Government, which gives us a lot of our guidance in how we conduct our meetings. There's an example in there. I checked with a number of cities around, and it's done the same way. And so there's ample time for speakers. We also have in our afternoon meeting, we have a 2:30 p.m. time that is allotted for speakers to come in the afternoon and speak for those who might not want to come out in the evenings. As far as the prayer, I started that and I stand by it. Everywhere I've ever been in my life, I mean, I take a pledge, one nation under God. It's who I am. We do have a moment of silence. We do have that from time to time. But we will have a prayer as long as I'm mayor. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question from the panel is from Mr. Costner.
Jobs and economic sustainability are important issues for the community. For both of you gentlemen, what have you done for economic development and job creation this past term, and what will you do going forward if elected?
Mr. Perkins first.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's been kind of difficult to tackle jobs like we wanted to because we spent the last 22 months focusing on a landfill and dividing the community. I think that right now we're obviously in the middle of one of the great economic depressions in the history of our country. And everybody in America is struggling to try to create jobs and opportunities for their citizens to earn a good living. What we have in Greensboro is a tremendous infrastructure. And we've put that together over a period of years, and that's something that I'm very proud of. Our water and sewer system is in the best shape it's ever been in. Our roads are in tremendous shape, and there are more big roads coming. And when you've got 5 interstate highways running through your region, you can work toward building the type of aerotropolis with logistics-oriented companies that we have an opportunity to build at the airport. And at the same time, you can work with your colleges and universities toward the nanotechnology and engineering center that's being developed on East Lee Street in Greensboro. So the combination of the airport on the east and the nanotech and engineering center on the west have been put together in the last few years, and the infrastructure is now in place where we can take a great leap forward with job creation.
Thank you. I come from the business world, and I would say probably in my 2 years as mayor, I probably have done more for business than my opponent's done in 16 years on council. I've spent time, the first thing I did after I was elected, the very first thing I did was to reach out to the mayors of Winston-Salem and High Point, and we do get together to discuss common issues. I've connected with mayors around the state. I've made multiple trips to Washington. I've made multiple trips to Raleigh on behalf of our business interests. I've talked to a legislative committee about regulatory reform to help small business where they're being burdened by burdensome regulations and unfair taxes, and I promise to continue to do that. We're in a very, very difficult economy here, and there are good things going on, but we've got a long way to go, and there's no short solution. It's hard work. I'm dedicated to it. I also spend a lot of time out in the business community. It has paid great dividends being out in our corporate community, and I do that. I do it well, and I connect, and we have had some good things happen as a result of that. Thank you.
The next question, actually it's two questions from the audience. They each turn the other on its head. The question they basically ask candidates, what can you tell voters to reassure them that you won't be beholden to any particular constituency? And in the case of Mr. Perkins, they're saying some people say you want to be mayor just to help your real estate business interests. And in the case of Mr. Knight, the question says, will you represent all people or just one side of town during the past month? You have not visited the northeast or southeast of Greensboro or rarely respond to invitations to come to events there. So obviously some people have questions and concerns about that, and Mayor Knight, you'll answer first.
I try to be responsive to all citizens. As I said earlier, I'm accessible. I have visitors. My door is open. Citizens can come to see me. I have about 200 invitations per month that I'm going to. And as far as being in East Greensboro, I have been to events there. I will continue to go as I go to other parts of the city. But it's many times it's easier. And people do want to come to the mayor's office. We can discuss issues. We can discuss problems. We have obviously mail, telephone. I get a lot of phone calls, as all council members do. And I'm confident that I'm doing well in that regard. Thank you.
I certainly hope we have the opportunity to see some economic development in this community, because if I'm catering to the folks in the development business, I'm not catering well enough because we've been slow the last 4 years. So we really need to have a balance in this community. One of the things that makes Greensboro a tremendous place to live is the quality of life and the quality of the developments that we have across our city. And so proper planning for those developments is very important. And we need to work together to do that. And it can't be one side of Greensboro or another. It can't be one industry or another. We have to balance, put the whole mix together, challenge our city council to come up with a shared vision, and then make it happen. You know, one of the things I did a few years ago was I got an inclination that we ought to try to work together in the heart of our region, and it morphed into a project called the Heart of the Triad. And the first two people that I called were number one, Becky Smothers, who's the mayor of High Point, and number two, Alan Joines, who's the mayor of the city of Winston-Salem. And after getting together with those two folks, I spent 60-some public appearances promoting that. And today, 7 jurisdictions have bought into that concept.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Johnson on the panel.
I'd like to ask you both how you would assess the state of race relations in Greensboro and how you see the mayor's role in bettering race relations.
Mr. Knight.
We've had it, and I have to look at city council. there has been a core group that I've seen over the years that in my opinion is intent on keeping things stirred up. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think we've got good relations in Greensboro, plenty of good people from all around Greensboro that I'm happy to be acquainted with, to work with. And the mayor can reach out to anyone. They can come to me, as I said, and the status is we have an open forum at the council. Goodness knows we have plenty of speakers. And so that's where I am. Thank you.
Mr. Perkins?
You know, Greensboro's got some 270,000 people. And if we're going to be able to move this community in a direction where we all benefit, we've all got to learn to appreciate one another. And we've all got to work together for a common purpose. Right now, all of us want jobs, and all of us want to live in a safe community. And we can't do that by picking issues that divide the community and not listening to input from our whole community to work toward beneficial solutions for everyone. A couple of cases in point. We've talked enough about the landfill. The landfill was one of the most divisive issues in this community that I have encountered since I've been on council, since 1993. The redistricting process was similarly divisive, and in fact, because of a public outcry, was turned around, and the council was forced to choose another plan. Folks, race relations in Greensboro was moving in the right direction, and in my opinion, it got detoured the last 2 years.
Thank you. The next round, the next two questions will be answered first by Mr. Perkins. Some questions here in general about the plight of the less affluent folks in our community given the state of the economy. In particular, someone has, the question says that the News and Record has reported that 25% of our children do not have enough food to eat. And the question is, what, as mayor, will you try to do about that in your position with the city of Greensboro? That's to Mr. Perkins first.
You know, as we've both said, times are tough in Greensboro, North Carolina. They're tough across the United States. And we've got to attack this job situation on two fronts. Number one, we've got to instill enough confidence in our citizenry that we've got a stable government and we're looking toward the future, and that they should work toward investing in their business, hiring a couple extra people, and moving forward for the future. Right now it's tough no matter about what business you're in. But we've got to instill the confidence in our people. Leadership instills confidence. Secondly, we've got to work with our region toward bringing in game-changing types of economic development opportunities. We saw one last week with HondaJet. HondaJet's going to employ 419 people within 5 years in our community. We've got to keep building on that aviation cluster. And we do that by taking advantage of what I think is a unique political situation in our region. We've got a United States Senator that lives in Greensboro, a United States Senator that lives in Winston-Salem, and the President Pro Tem of the North Carolina Senate in Eden. We've got to marshal those three powerful individuals, ask them the right questions, and keep asking the right questions till they bring it back to the table at home.
Mr. Knight?
Okay. I think the question was talking about we have a 25%, I believe it's 25% poverty rate. That, you know, we've got to move forward to working, as everyone talks about, economic development, but we don't want to leave anybody behind. And one of the keys, even though City Council is not directly involved, is education. There has got to be education. I think the city can certainly work with the county and with the school system and the community college system to be sure that we're going forward, that we're bringing everybody forward. we've got a long road, we got a lot of work, and both here, the Piedmont, the region, but here in Greensboro, what I'm talking about, we've got to really work and reach out and make sure everyone has an opportunity. We do a lot. You know, we have a great volunteer community. It was my pleasure to speak before the Volunteer Action Center the other night, and we have just a tremendous volunteer effort and faith community. And we can continue to encourage that effort to help people. We've got the IRC, the Interactive Resource Center. We've supported that. We continue those kinds of efforts to help those who are less fortunate than we are. Thank you.
Next question from the panel is from Ms. Lamert, and it goes first to Mr. Perkins.
This year, the City Council cut funding to the Greensboro Economic Development Alliance. Why, and should the funding be restored?
That if you're in the middle of the biggest depression in 80 years, that the last place you should be cutting your funding is on your economic developers that are out trying to sell your community to the world. And it seems like we need to be helping them by fully funding them, and the mayor and the city council need to be some of the chief cheerleaders for them instead of picking at them and detracting from their core focus. You know, we have a tremendous team that is a combination of our local economic developers and our regional folks at the Piedmont Triad Partnership. And when you put them together, they can market our community assets as well as anybody in the country. We've got a lot to promote in this region and in this city, and we can't do it by cutting the budget back on our chief economic development promoter.
The reduction came as part of the recommendations from the city manager that we had given guidance to him on the budget earlier last year when the budget was started, that we wanted to reduce funding. We were looking for areas to cut, and then that we had to. We were faced with some constraints, library construction, some other issues. But excuse me, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But but as far as funding, the Piedmont Triad Partnership, which was alluded to, I was on the exec committee until a recent restructuring. But what they're working for right now, they're aiming for what they call a game changer mentality, to bring something big to the Triad. And as part of that, the business leadership is assuming a leading role, and I'm informed that more funding may become available to such as the business partnerships and the chambers, those kinds of activities. I think it's a proper role for them. We have to look at what is the role of government. Certainly we are a partner, but we have limited resources. We're in a very difficult financial environment, and we're going to continue to be. So I think we'll have to look at it very, very closely each year.
Thank you. Next two questions go to Mayor Knight first. I have two questions submitted about the Downtown Greenway project. An estimated $16 million in commercial and residential development has been announced recently, in large part spurred by the Downtown Greenway. Another question focuses on its connection to neighborhoods, but they're both basically asking how this project ranks in your mind among the city's priorities and what you will do, if anything, as mayor to expedite its completion. That's Mr. Knight first.
Downtown Greenway has a combination of private and government funding, and as far as priorities, I think that's going to depend on what we see is committed development coming in. I think we've got to look at we've got a lot of priorities. When we have unfunded libraries, we've got unfunded police positions, we're going to have to look at that. We're going to have to look very, very carefully. So when we go into the budget next year, it will be ranked along with everything else we do. So I can't answer where it ranks, but it certainly, it will have to stand in line, and we'll have to look at it, because we, the council, will have to make some tough decisions when we talk to the city manager as we go into the budget. Thank you.
You know, downtown Greensboro is the heart and soul of our community. It's the one place that all of us can come together and have a good time and celebrate being in Greensboro, North Carolina. And if you want to look at one place that is really common to all of us, it's the downtown Center City Park. And you can go there at any time and see people from all over the community having a good time in downtown Greensboro. Well, we don't have a river in downtown Greensboro. A lot of communities have built their downtowns around a river. And so the decision was made to let's have a greenway that would be unique to Greensboro. And that would link the various segments of our city together. And we're through stage 1, working on stage 2. We need to move forward on that so that that 4.8 mile loop will truly link our downtown with the rest of our city. It gives our citizens an opportunity to exercise. Importantly, it gives our developers an opportunity to link to the Greenway to provide an additional amenity to spur economic development. $7 million of the $23 million cost of the Greenway is being funded by the private sector. The balance is a combination of transportation, bonds, and other city funding sources. We need to move it forward as soon as possible because that will create economic development and jobs in Center City.
Next question from the panel is from Mr. Costner to Mr. Knight first.
You gentlemen are in different stages of your lives. How will that affect how well you do the job as mayor and your commitment to the job?
In self-defense, I have to say that I was a long-distance runner, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Perkins was a world-class runner, but now I'm in good health, and as I said, I'm 72. Obviously, I'm not a career politician. Some people have jokingly said I'm not a politician, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. To me, I'm just it's service to me. It's community service, and I want to serve a term. I've already been there one term. I want to continue, but there's a limit to it for me, and I just want to do my best and do it sincerely, and then I'll step aside. We need to make room for the youth. We need to really stir up the young people and bring them in. You know, we had young people, I don't know where they came from, on the streets over the weekend. We know about that, and you know, frustration, and you know, we need to get them involved. We need them involved in what we're doing, and government is one way, but it's been an honor for me. It's been a deep honor to do this. Lived in Greensboro all my life, and everything I've got is here, and so I'm just very thankful for everything, my friends and all. So I hope I'll have another chance.
You know, one of the really, I guess, fun things that we've done on City Council this year, or over the last 2 years, was an incident that Mayor Alan Joines called Mayor Knight and challenged him to a push-up contest. Now, I'm telling you, if I am 71 or 72 years old and I can knock out 29 push-ups like our mayor did, I'll be a pretty happy guy. But he said, he said, I wanted to win this thing, so he came down and he said, Robbie, can you sub for me? And I knocked out 50 in 50 seconds, and he got to call Mayor Joines and say, we beat you. So, you know, we are in different stages of life. And you have to appreciate both stages. And I would take my energy and my creativity and try to push it as hard as I can for this city to create jobs and opportunities for our citizens. And, you know, it's hard to know where health will take you. But you need to appreciate it if you've got good health. And fortunately, both of us do, and both of us have energy for Greensboro.
Thank you. Last question before the break here relates, and I'll ask both the candidates to answer this even more briskly than they've been answering all night. What role do you see for the City Council and the city government in promoting small business and the growth and recovery of our economy outside of funding the partnership? What can the city itself be doing in that regards? And that is to Mayor Knight first. I'm sorry, it's to Mr. Perkins first.
You know, that's one thing that I think we have been working on. We've started a development services area where a citizen can come in and present a set of plans and have a one-stop shop and move through it in a fairly expeditious manner to do what that business needs to get done. And that came out of a discussion with Guilford County about merging our planning departments and our inspections departments. But I think we came up with a better solution that's in place today. So I think the bottom line is that if small business is going to be enhanced in Greensboro, we've got to find ways to make it easier for them to get their permits and move through our system and let them do their jobs. We've also got to instill confidence in small business that Greensboro is a good place to invest their money instead of other places, because they will leave here if we make it too difficult.
I think you said be brief, I will. Part of my experience with getting out in the business community is businesses have problems. And I have been able to listen, take those problems back to the manager's office, and they've been able to find solutions. Not always the solution they wanted, but a solution. And the city has done a great job of having expedited turnaround, which has been a complaint in the past. I think everybody would agree in the past there were often delays, and so the city can certainly have a role in that. And it's all about service. Rashad Young would tell you that it's all about service, quality of service, and the city is all about that excellence in service.